Welcome to the So Much More podcast, where we talk with people in the custom window treatment, soft home furnishings industry, and so much more. I'm your host, Seal DeGuglielmo. My guests on the podcast today are Wes and Jess Breitenbach. In 1999, they were on a quest to work for themselves and have more control over their own time. That's when they created Crown Upholstery. 25 years later, they have definitely worked, and they have yet to gain much control over their time, although it is important to them and they continue to work on it. Jessica is the fifth generation in her family to be enticed by the upholstery lifestyle. Growing up in her grandparents' shop in Glendale, Arizona, she witnessed firsthand the freedoms that upholstery had to offer, as well as the hard work that was necessary that one has to put in to be successful in this craft. Wes was raised in Maryland and had never known upholstery to be anything other than something he did to the interiors of cars. The sirens of upholstery began to sing to him on a visit to Jessica's grandparents' house. He saw their home-based shop and the countless processes that go into this craft, and he quickly fell in love. Having a background in auto mechanics, he was already primed for problem solving that this journey provides. He took a few classes by Jessica's grandfather Frank, and then began his apprenticeship. You'll hear about Wes's decision to open his own shop, Wes and Jess's decision to move, how they started in one-car garage, and how it's grown. How it's met some of Wes's goals and his definitions of success, and how they've had to change those definitions as they've gone along. They live above their first upholstery shop, which is now one of their buildings. They are officially a business-based home. I love that. Within a few years, they hired another upholsterer, and they were ready for more growth. Jessica found and purchased another building in the same neighborhood, and this allowed them to bring on another full-time upholsterer. Jessica is now coordinating the schedules of 3 upholsterers, along with everything else that she does that goes into running the business. They still live above the old upholstery shop, but that's now a hair salon. And Jessica also manages that as well. And that is the reason that she won Knoxville's Woman-Owned Business of the Year for 2024. Even when they aren't working together, they still enjoy spending time together. And that was obvious during the interview while I was talking with them. Whether it's camping, sifting through junk shops, or riding bikes, they're rarely seen far apart. It was really fun to talk with the two of them and fascinating to hear about how they have tried to create a great atmosphere at work, but also share their knowledge of upholstery as well as running a business. I really hope that you enjoy hearing from Wes and Jess today. Jessica and Wes, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure. I would love for you to tell us a little bit about who the two of you are, where in the world you're located. Tell us a little bit about your business. Jessica, why don't you start?
Yeah, my name is Jessica Breitenbach. I'm one of the owners of Crown Upholstery. We're located in Knoxville, Tennessee. Beautiful little town.
And how about you, Wes?
Wes, Jessica's husband. She is I like to point out the boss, the primary owner here at the business. She's the one that, keeps everything organized and moving forward and all that stuff. You just see me on the Instagram. She's the real
I'm the brain. I'm the brain.
Yeah, the real brain behind the operation. Yeah.
Sure.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Crown Upholstery is on Instagram, and Wes, you do a Tip Tuesday video on Instagram. I assume it's every Tuesday. I don't know that I've ever missed one. And as I was saying before we got started, you incorporate humor, but you also incorporate sharing of knowledge. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how you started in upholstery, how long you've been doing it, and what made you decide to make this not just a job, but a career.
Well, it was a rocky start. I was not one that was real into school. And so I ended up leaving early from school and started working in a garage. And so I had an automotive background that led to, better automotive jobs. I found myself one day working at a Cadillac dealership in Arizona, and a long story to get there, but that's where I ended up. And after a couple of years, it kind of took all the joy that I had from working on cars, for doing it for other people. And so I was at Jessica's grandparents' house. That's where I met Jessica in Arizona. I was at her grandparents' house, and they had an upholstery shop in their garage. It was in their home, and sitting there a little bit talking to him, I kind of realized that there was not much difference. There is, because you got engines and furniture. It's totally different, but it's problem solving. It's really, it's what I tell people when they want to get into this and they're just like, I'm really interested in learning. So I'm like, problem solving is going to be your best skill in this craft, because it doesn't matter how well you are at sewing or how well you are at, anything that you're doing in this craft. You're going to have something that's going to be a problem, and you got to be able to solve it. You got to be able to be creative as far as problem solving. So I think that's one of the most important skills to have in this craft.
That's a great way to put that, because, and I've made this very clear, I've done some small upholstery projects. I do not consider myself an upholsterer. I took a class years ago that the Custom Home Furnishings Academy was offering, and it was a medallion chair. And I finished that job and said, oh, I don't want to be an upholsterer.
Yeah, and I kind of felt the opposite when I first started taking furniture apart and started kind of putting back there, and I see all the process that's involved and everything that was like, just the detail and everything. It really got me, hooked. And so I ended up taking some classes. Jessica's grandfather taught at a community college out in Arizona, and that was a point in contention for him in the community there, because a lot of people were really upset that he was teaching at that time. He taught probably through the 80s and 90s at this college, and people were really upset that he was doing it because it was going to create more upholsterers, and it was going to ruin their business and all these other things. And that never happened, because the majority of the people that took his class were just people looking to do stuff on their own and pick up a hobby. And I think very few people actually started a business from that. But after I took his class for a little while, he hired me on in his shop as an apprentice. And then, from there, he, kind of got me going, doing what I needed to be doing. And then, we started our own shop in 1999. And from that point on, we did move around the country a few times, just kind of looking for where we wanted to be. Upholstery was interesting to move across the country with that craft, because it was pretty quickly, any town we moved to, I could find work. Okay. It was pretty easy to get going, wherever we went. We finally settled here in Knoxville, and that's probably the longest we've been here. 17 years now, almost.
Yeah, this year will be 17 years.
So we've been doing this for this will be 25 going on 26 years now.
Okay.
And it is that's kind of how I got into it. It's just it's kind of sort of the real short story.
Jessica, in your bio, it says that you're the 5th generation upholsterer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there for a while we thought it was 4 generations, and we just happened to be talking to my grandfather about something.
Going through some old pictures.
Maybe that's what it was, and he said, "Oh yeah, that's it was Minnie
Maynard." Yeah,
Minnie Maynard. She did upholstery too, and we went, "Wait, what?" And so it goes back to my dad did upholstery off and on. Didn't make a career out of it though. My grandparents did upholstery. My great grandma did upholstery and soft furnishings, and then now my great great grandmother also did the same thing. So it's kind of come through that line, and then Wes learned from my grandpa, and
I married into it.
Luckily, he's really good at it.
Do you do any upholstery, Jessica?
No,
she does a lot of sewing.
I do a lot of sewing.
She doesn't do much assembling, but she does a lot of sewing. She does a lot of tear down. She does a lot of every aspect of that, except for the actual putting stuff back on.
Yeah, I end up in the office a lot more than down on the shop floor. So I do all the customer relations, scheduling, invoicing, all of that stuff. She
does all of the design. When we go to clients' houses, we are probably one of the few shops that actually do in-home estimates. And so we have a set of books that we load up and we take to people's houses, and we bring fabrics into their home. Mm-hmm. That was, I started doing that when we first started upholstery in 99. I started doing that because most upholsterers were just telling people, "Oh, go find your fabric and bring it to me." And I wanted to have a little more control over the quality of what I was producing. And I didn't want people bringing me these this real thin toile or, whatever that they got from Joann's, and it's got a big flaw going down it, or whatever the reason was. It was just, I didn't really have, and if I made a mistake, now I had to go run around town and try to find another, yard and a half of this fabric that who knows where they got it from. And so we started doing that. And it was kind of a two-prong, because it was giving our clients a service that not a lot of people were offering. because now we're coming into your house, we're showing you fabric samples, we're discussing quality materials, we're finding out, what they're going to be using and stuff. And it was a service that not a lot of people were doing, and our clients really liked that, and it kind of propelled us kind of ahead of some other shops. And that's something that we've always retained and done. And now it's kind of shifted from, it was a way to get clients and really kind of stand out. And now it's something that I kind of feel is really important for our industry, because we have a huge, we have a couple big suppliers. And if we aren't purchasing materials from them, that's going to affect them. If I'm sending all my clients to discount fabric shops to do that stuff, then I'm having suppliers that are going to be, closing. We've had, when we first moved here to Knoxville, 16, 17 years ago, there was 2 supply houses for upholstery supplies, and now there's none. And so, it's great to be able to run down the street to a supply house and, with a swatch of fabric, I'd go in there and go in the back and find some thread that matched up fabric, because I didn't keep all the colors of thread on hand, and I'd buy a spool of thread and be gone, and so I think there's an entire industry, it's the same thing with supplies, with anything that we get for the shop. We always try to find physical suppliers that we're supporting, because if I have a problem, I get a case of adhesive, or I get some anything that I get, and I have a problem with it, I call them up and ship it back, and we get an exchange, as opposed to, Amazon or something like that. It's like you just got no accountability there.
Right. You have a relationship with these people.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so I want my customers to have a relationship with us, and I want to have a relationship with our suppliers, and because it's all about relationships, and so I think that's one thing that our society has kind of drifted away from, is those, those transactional relationships. Even though it's just, a fabric supplier, occasionally if we get a chance to swing by there and stop in, it's like, oh, they know us, we know them, we're meeting the person that we're talking on the phone, and it just kind of, builds that. And I think that developing that community is really important. And so maintaining those connections with fabric companies and things like that. And our shop, we exclusively deal only with our fabrics.
Okay.
We have a couple of clients who maybe they went to Peru and got some, hand woven thing or something like that, and they just want to put it on some little chair, and they know it's, it's not going to be an everyday use, things like that. And I also tell them I'm going to do my best to not make a mistake, but we're human. So, it's one of those things where, we do the occasional client supplied material, but it's pretty uncommon. But like I said, that helps maintain those relationships with those suppliers, which I think is real important in our industry.
Right. Do you consider your business model to be retail, or to the trade, or a combination? Do you work with interior designers at all?
We do typically, though. I think a lot of it's been just recently that we have gotten our schedule caught up. For a long time, it was just Jessica and myself for the first 18 years of our business. And it got to the point where we had about a 24-month waiting list.
Wow, that's a long time.
And it's a very long time. And it was kind of interesting, because I was very grateful for clients that were willing to wait that long for a piece of furniture. But at the same time, it was absurd to tell somebody that we're going to have to wait that long for a piece of furniture. And so we've hired a couple of people, and we've gotten our wait list shorter. Now we're about, 6 months or so. Sometimes we get commercial jobs. We get those in a lot sooner and get them done quicker than we would a regular job. We have 2 different schedules that we deal with. We have a commercial schedule and a residential schedule.
But designers couldn't have waited.
But designer.
Right. So that for a long time, we didn't work with designers strictly because of that. This past year, really, we've kind of got, our schedule under control, having, people work for us and whatnot. And so we've really kind of opened up a little bit more to working with designers. So we tend to work with a lot more designers on like new builds or in a commercial setting, a lot of, restaurants or hotels, things like that. Every once in a while, we'll work with one on a residential level. We do kind of have some high bars that we have set working with designers, though, because we tend to prefer to use our own fabrics, and a lot of designers prefer to use their own fabrics.
Right.
So we've kind of met in the middle to where we will require that we meet with the designer and the client, so that we have everybody's kind of realistic expectations on what the fabrics, how they need to perform, and what level. So we've kind of said, if you're wanting to work with us, then you kind of have to work the way that we want to work, so that everybody's expectations are being met.
It's interesting to hear you say that because I think there's been a lot of hesitation in our industry for people to set boundaries or to set standards for what they're willing to do. And I've seen a lot of those questions on the Facebook groups inside the forum in the library, like, oh, I have this fabric, it's awful. There have been a couple times like, well, do you have no say in this? Because even when I did retail for a while, and then I went strictly working with designers, as you said, Jessica, I would go with the designer to the client's home and I had a sample of the fabric in my hand. And sometimes they'd hand me an upholstery swatch and I'd say, oh, that's really not going to make a good drapery panel. So I was part of the process so that fewer mistakes would be made. But it did take me a long time to be able to say, oh, this is what works for my business. But I hear that confidence level on both of you, and it's not a question of waffling. It's like, this is how we run our business.
Sure. I think that you have, especially when you're a young shop starting out, trying to get things going, I think sometimes designers have that approach that is, you need me. If you want to work, you're going to need me. And I think a lot of upholsterers kind of may have that feeling, oh, I need to do this. I need to take this job because I need, and I think that, when you set those boundaries and you make those, like she was saying, you got those hoops to jump through. There's certain, things, there's things that we are going to do if you want to work with us. And if you don't, that's totally fine. I can't work for everyone.
Well, I will say that a lot of those hoops that we have set up come from lessons we have learned. So over 25, 26 years of doing things, working with materials that we know are not appropriate or doing things and realizing, well, we should not be doing this. So that's where it comes from, is having those lessons because beginning out, we didn't have anybody to say, hey, you shouldn't do this, or, hey, maybe, think about it this way instead. So a lot of that.
Because nobody was sharing information. So we had to learn everything on our own.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's kind of what we've done is try to do things that kind of set us apart from other shops. Try to do things, make our rules. It's our business, and this is the way we want things to go. And if it doesn't work for you, that's okay. There's no hard feelings.
Right, and if you have a period of time where you are 2 years out, then you must be doing something right because people are not saying, I don't want to work with you. They're saying, okay, I'm willing to work with you. And I have to wait a while. And I know myself from having ordered some furniture a few years back that sometimes it just takes that long to get things. And there are some parts of the design world and parts of the world where people are very accustomed to that. Oh, okay, I have to wait for that.
Yeah, This is definitely something that I guess Americans have a difficult time comprehending is that because we get people that'll pull up in front of the shop with a sofa in their truck and they're like, hey, I want you to give me an estimate on this. I'm just going to drop it off. And you're like, whoa, hang on a second. None of that's going to happen.
Right.
Here's my car.
Your sofa's just going to hang out in my shop.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but I'll give them a card and I'll say, email us some pictures of your project. And they're like, oh, I got it in the car. And I'm like, no. I'm working on stuff right now. I'm working for another client right now. And our door says by appointment only. And they like to knock on the door and say, I know it says by appointment, but. And then I say, I know you have your sofa in the van, but that's not how we work here. And some people respect that and some people get upset about it. And there's nothing I can do to control that. That's on them. That's not me. This is how we run our business. And that's just the way that it is. If I stop every time someone comes to the door, then I'm not, I'm getting pulled away every single time. It's just, it doesn't work out. And so that's another boundary that we've set up. Not going to walk out to the parking lot and give somebody a quote on a sofa just because they brought it today.
Right. And I've gotten a little bit ahead of myself.
That's okay. I do it all the time. It's my fault. Just tell me to shut up and I'll move on.
When you're communicating with your clients, how do you do that? Because I always find the difference between the upholstery world and the drapery world to be very different. There are a lot of commonalities, but there are a lot of things that are really different in upholstery workrooms. For instance, they will give an estimate, and as they start to tear things down, they go, oh, this is not at all what I was expecting. This is going to cost more or take more time. They're just factors that they couldn't possibly have known because of hadn't had it torn down. And that does not happen as much in the drapery end of things because you're not pulling things apart. You're not discovering old foam. None of that has to do with it. So there are differences. But once I give an estimate, that's the price, unless I screw up or, I mean, is there something, if there's something that they come back to me and say, oh, wait, I want this like this, okay, then the price can change. But primarily, that's the price. But I've always loved the idea that even the least confident upholsterers are willing to say, this is what I think it's going to cost. I will get it started, but there has to be a process of communication with clients. So I'm curious how you guys have set that up. And Jessica, you said you're responsible for a lot of that.
Yeah, so it all starts with an email. So whether they call Wes or they try to text him or anything, we make them email us at least a photo. We prefer some dimensions sometimes. And there's times where, they'll send me a photo and I will reply back to them. It says, they'll send me a photo and sometimes I'll reply back and say, hey, I have a few questions or I need a clarification or whatnot. So it's all we start off in email, and I do that specifically to make sure that I keep kind of a log of our conversation, right, what we've talked about. Because it could be that, they approve the estimate, but we're not going to see the piece for another month. Mm-hmm. And so I want to be able to go back and say, oh, she mentioned she has cats, or she mentioned she wanted blue, or, whatnot. So I kind of have all that down. So we'll give an estimate from the photo. We'll give labor and yardage estimate. And then from that, they'll say, yes, we'll set up an appointment to go out. We only do appointments for one solid week, about every 2 to 3 weeks. Okay. So we'll set aside one solid week, 4 or 5 days to where we are going to see clients in our shop, or we're going to see clients in their home or on location. And then we load up all of our books and we go to their home and we figure out what they want as far as fabric and design and how they want things to sit. And then we take a deposit of the fabric, and the balance is due when we're done with the piece. And then we get them on our schedule for pickup. So we're interacting with them at least 3 to 4 times, kind of depending on the piece. We're going out to their home at least 2 times. Sometimes, 3 times, depends on, what the piece is, but that's typically how that all works. As far as our estimate from the email is normally pretty spot on. We try to get really good with our labor cost and how much yardage we're looking at. Okay. When we see the piece in person, that's kind of our chance to say, oh, I didn't realize it was quite this big. Or I didn't realize you wanted a large pattern, with a large repeat. So that's kind of our chance to get hands on it, feel it, is the foam crumbly in the back? Does it feel like there's 2 layers underneath? So it's kind of our chance right there to say, I know it was going to be, I said it was going to be this much, but in reality, it's actually going to be this much more.
Okay. And we usually try to make that clear, when we're sending estimates, that it's just an estimate and that, that's based off of those pictures. Correct. But one of the things I've always done is, if I go and I evaluate a piece in person, I'm going to tell them what I think about it, what it might need, if it needs, frame re-glued or whatever is going to need on it. And if I miss something, I miss something. Okay. I very rarely call a client back and say, hey, we're going to need this. Now, There have been some times, but usually I don't do that because I don't like that as a client myself. Mm-hmm. I don't like when that happens. And I'm hiring a professional to do something. And so it's like you put your car in the shop and they're like, oh, it's going to be $100. And then the next day they call you, but it's going to be $1,000. You're like, geez, Louise, man, so I try to get all of that stuff figured out when we do the in-person evaluation. But then there's also times when I get a project and it wasn't as complicated as I thought, or it went real smoothly. And in that situation, I'm not going to call the client and say, hey, guess what? I'm going to charge you less. Right. They agreed to that price and what I did. And so that's fine. And that's the same thing if I have to do a little bit more work. Maybe I got to glue a couple of joints. Maybe I got to repair a few things that I wasn't anticipating. But that's on me because I didn't catch it. And that's okay. I'm all right with that. It all balances out in the end. Right. I'm not going to, because in reality, it's not probably going to, whatever I missed probably isn't going to take me that much longer to repair anyway. Maybe I got to put some glue on something and let it sit overnight or, something like that. But most of the time, if it's anything major, somebody need to get springs redone, or like I said, woodwork done or something like that, I can catch that pretty easily when we're evaluating something.
Okay. As I said, I did get a little ahead of myself. I wanted to go back when you were working with Jessica's grandfather and you decided to open your own shop. Why, when you were already working with somebody, what made the two of you decide to do that?
Well, I had gone into it wasn't my decision. I had gone into work one day. I went into the shop and he said, "Hey, I need to talk to you." And I sat down and I was just like, "Okay, what's up?" And he goes, and I mean, he was a very religious man. He comes from a preacher background, wonderful human being. Him and Grandma were great people, but they were very religious. And he sat me down. He said, "I got to talk to you." And I'm just thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, what did I do?
Right.
Like, did I say something? Did I do something? I don't know what's going on." And he said, "I'm going to have to let you go."
Oh.
And I was like, "Oh." And then I was just like, "Wow, I really did. I mean, like, what did I do? I've been working with this guy for at this point, between classes and at a shop, I'd been with him for 2 years." And he goes, "I can't afford you anymore.
Oh,
You're too good to be here. You need to go out and do your own thing." And he gave me a sewing machine and said, "Go home." And so I took the sewing machine, went home and started our business. I didn't ever not think it was not going to be a business.
Okay.
I knew it was going to be something. I assumed that I could work with him and maybe take over his shop, or I don't know what, but that moment, he just kind of kicked me out of the nest, and he fed us a little bit of work to start with. He would kind of give us a little project here and there. Matter of fact, I think for the first 6 months or so, we were using their van to pick up and deliver stuff.
Probably.
okay.
But they were very supportive of us, getting our own shop. And he just said, "Look, this is what you need to do to actually, make some money." One of the best pieces of advice he told me on that time. He said that, hang on a second.
Take your time.
Sometimes when I talk about him, it gets me a little bit. He said that, if you like doing this, that's great. He said, "The only thing I want to let you know, you're never going to get rich doing this.
Okay.
But you're never going to go hungry either." He said, and I love this quote. He said, "Someday you'll eat chicken and someday you'll eat feathers, but you're always going to eat." And that's the way it's been for us.
Okay.
It's always taken care of us. He said, "If you take good care of upholstery, it'll take good care of you." And 25 years later, we have 2 employees that are fantastic people. We own 2 commercial properties. We have our shop in one, and we live half of one and rent half the other. And it's done really good for us. So I never didn't think it wasn't going to be a business.
Okay.
I have, experience in working in a lot of other fields, or a few other fields. And one of the things that I just don't work well with others.
Okay.
I was raised in the fashion of there's always something to do. Mm-hmm. There's never any downtime. If you don't have anything to do, find something to do. There's always a broom in the corner. Then there's always sweeping that needs, so it's just, I was always a strong work ethic.
Right.
And when I get environments that there are people that don't have that, I don't play well with those people. So it was always my intention that this would be something. I saw them doing that out of their house, and they had a really good life from that out of their house. And I thought, I want that. I want to wake up and just walk into work and, work and do my own thing and be able to spend time with Jessica, be able to spend time with at that time we had a child. And so it was, we still do, but they're older and moved out.
Right.
We were able to, have a really good quality family life.
Okay.
And it was true. We have not gotten rich, but we've gotten a lot of other things.
Right. And in that moment, Wes, you're telling me that he told you, "Sit down, I need to talk to you." I could feel it. Like, what have I done? And then he's telling you, "I have to let you go." That's one of the worst moments of your life, except what he did for you, it was one of the best gifts he could have possibly given you.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Yeah, because I wasn't going anywhere. So he just had to, like I said, he just had to push me out of the nest but he did it in a very comfortable way. Like I said, he made sure that we had work and we had, the means to do that and all that stuff. So, and the first chair that I ever did, like all on my own, actually was at the house, and because he gave that to me, and he said, "Here."
It was my grandma's.
Yeah, it was her grandmother's chair, and he was like, "Here, now do this chair because I don't have time to do it, because you never have time to do your own stuff."
Correct.
And it was this wingback that was and it wasn't like the wingbacks where you have the square wings on the side. It was like this big swooping out with these big, like lobes that kind of come across, and it was just this, and it was a striped fabric that was going on it, and I was just terrified. And I was going to be doing it for them. It was going to sit in their house, and I was like, that's even more terrifying.
Yes.
But yeah, I got it done, and it got done, and Grandma loved it, and whether that was real or not, she said she loved it.
In all of that, did you ever consider quitting and doing something else?
I'm not a good quitter.
Okay.
If I ever get the feeling like I'm going to quit, I probably just dig in.
Okay.
I've never been a quitter on really anything. Even quitting smoking was really hard to do. But yeah, I mean, that's, it was never a doubt that it wasn't going to be business. And yeah, as far as quitting, that really wasn't an option for me, because what else was I going to do?
Okay.
Like, I'm going to get a job for somebody else again? That wasn't going to happen.
Right, right. I always say I don't make a good employee, but I kind of like what you said. I don't really like working around people who don't have the same end goal in mind that I do. I'm one of 9 children. So yeah, if we were bored, we were given something to do.
Yeah, and then I think Jessica, I'll speak for her for just a second here. I don't think that she had any inclination of getting into upholstery.
Oh, growing up, absolutely not. It was just something my grandparents did, and I never thought anything about it.
Right.
But I will say that I don't remember a time that I didn't know how to sew.
Okay.
Like, I grew up with a sewing machine. That's just, I made my doll clothes, and, just that was just part of what I did. I played with the sewing machine. Right. So, but having that be a career, I just never even thought about it. I think I just kind of took it for granted that it was there. Mm-hmm. And then, when Wes started working, for my grandparents, and, we had a child, and it was kind of like, oh, wait, maybe I do want, a little bit more control over our own time. Right. And so, yeah, I just kind of blossomed into what it is now.
So while Wes didn't ever think about quitting, did you ever think about quitting?
I joke that I think about it every day.
She's always trying to get fired.
Oh, that's my every day. Just fire me.
That's not going to happen.
No, not really. But yeah, there's definitely, it's a business. There's, frustrations, and there's, paperwork that piles up, and it's never ending. And, it's just part of it. But like, I wouldn't be here if I didn't love what we do. Right. So yeah, it's definitely, I guess it's, if you love what you do, it's not, work. I don't think of it as a job. It's just,
It's still work.
I mean, well,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just what we do. It's part of our life. Mm-hmm. So.
And I look at it as I get to not only do what I love, but I get to do it with the person that I love. So
that's so nice. Not everyone can work with their spouse.
That's true.
Well, I married her because I liked her. And it's like, we kind of think of our relationship in dog years, because most people see each other a couple hours in the evening or in the morning, and then, maybe a day or so on the weekend. And we may not see each other a couple of hours out of the week, but
right.
But it works out well. I know it can't work for everybody. I mean, most people probably couldn't be around each other, married or not, as much as we're around each other. Mm-hmm. But it works out.
Well, and you did say something that is sometimes unique to some relationships. You married her because you like her. Not everyone actually likes their spouse. Well, yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah, but yeah, and I think she likes me. She's been around for a while, so
most of the time.
I want to jump in and take a moment to thank the sponsors who make it possible for me to bring you the podcast each week. My sponsors are people in the industry that I have personally had a connection to, purchased from, or used their services. So it makes it really easy for me to tell you about them and the great things that they have to offer. Because I feel so strongly about education in our industry, I'm thrilled that as the owner of the Curtains and Soft Furnishings Resource Library, I can use the resources of the library to help support the podcast. The library hosts the industry's largest curated collection of educational resources for the custom home furnishings professional. Membership to the library gives you access to a wealth of downloadable reference materials, videos, live events, as well as a community of support to help you develop your design, sales, and fabrication skills, and to grow or start a business. Join the library today at csfrl.org. Angels Linings would like to invite you to become part of their family. With reputable lining comes exceptional customer service. Trust them with your linings like I do. You get 2 Tootsie Pops with every bolt of lining you receive. For smiles, satisfaction, and a sugar kick all around, call Angels Linings at 1-800-450-9368. The Workroom Channel is the premier online training provider for professional fabrication skills. Go to theworkroomchannel.com to browse the selection of anytime access courses created by industry experts. Watch detailed demonstration videos, download companion materials, and participate in private course discussion boards with your instructor and classmates from around the world. Start your course path today at theworkroomchannel.com. If you've listened to the podcast, you know how much I've learned from Michelle Williams. And I think most of my guests have mentioned taking at least one of her classes or gotten coaching from her. Her business is Scarlet Thread Consulting. Michelle loves to work with creative business owners to help them understand all aspects of their business and to use their gifts and talents to make it profitable. Michelle is a strategic profitability coach certified in the Profit First methodology, and she can be reached at scarletthreadconsulting.com. I've also mentioned my membership with the WCAA, and I'm now a gold level sponsor, where education, networking, visibility, and industry discounts are just a few of the benefits that are offered to our members. The Window Covering Association of America is the only national nonprofit trade association that's dedicated to the window coverings industry and the dealers, decorators, workrooms, designers, and installers that make up our membership. Join today at WCAA.org. WCAA, where you are never in business alone. I've also been extremely fortunate to be able to work with Merrill Y. Landis Ltd. It's a family-owned and operated custom workroom and product distribution company to the trade with over 70 years of experience. And in addition to their custom work, they offer a wide variety of decorative drapery hardware. They offer stout and flare 21 fabrics. They have Roman shade operating systems and assembly kits. They have motorization and workroom supplies, and they serve both designers and workrooms. And you can check out the MYL Advantage at mylLTD.com. Okay, what would you say have been among the biggest challenges in running your own business?
I think that for me, it's just being graceful with yourself during the mistakes.
Yeah.
Because they're going to happen all the time. They're going to happen every day. You're just going to have to embrace mistakes and just find a way to have peace with them, and to not tear yourself up, not waste any time. You go, I made a mistake. How am I going to fix it and move on? Those have probably been the most challenges because, there have been times where I have been up late at night in the shop alone with not enough material to finish a job and just crying.
Yeah.
So, how am I going to get myself out of this? But those are the moments where you sometimes learn the most.
Mm-hmm. True.
And I try to remind a lot of younger upholsterers when they're in some rough situations or they've done something that's going to cost, they got to go out and buy 3 more yards of material at $150 or, $50 a yard. So it's $150 out of their pocket.
Right.
And I asked them, when was the last time you paid for some classes? When was the last time that you invested in your education? I know that it looks like a mistake and it's going to cost you money, but if you learn something out of it, you've just invested in yourself. So if you just change your perspective on some of those things, you're going like, oh, okay, you're right. You know what? It is. And you just go, this is what it is. And you just go do it. And you stop thinking about it because you could spend all day spinning your wheels about, woulda, coulda, shoulda stuff. Or you can just change this perspective a little bit and be like, I learned something. This is what it cost me. Move on. And it may happen again. And if it does happen again, you go, okay, how did I get myself back in this situation? What did I not do? So it's kind of, it's one of those things where, like I said, you just need to have a lot of patience and grace with yourself, and and you will hopefully not get caught up too much in that, beating yourself up.
And what about for you, Jessica? What have you felt have been some of the biggest challenges?
I think some of the biggest challenges, I mean, definitely what Wes had already mentioned, but some of them are growing pains. We were so small for so very long before we finally were like, okay, we're gonna hire people, and it wasn't just the challenge of trying to find people. It was also the challenge of how do you do payroll?
Right.
Like how do you do payroll taxes? It was just definitely trying to figure out the growing pains and not having anybody to ask necessarily. Luckily here in Knoxville, we have a branch of the SBA who I have been able to reach out every time I've had some questions, and they are a wonderful group. I would say if anybody has any questions when it comes to any sort of business, reach out to your local SBA because they are a wealth of knowledge and it is all free.
Okay.
So.
And they want to see you succeed.
And they want to see you succeed.
Right.
So, yeah. So when we started, talking about having employees, I didn't even know what I didn't know. And so being able to go and sit down with somebody who was, a payroll specialist, and really I was able to leave that meeting and go, okay, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I think I have an idea now.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, and then we bought another building. So I think anytime that we've had any sort of growth, it's been, trying to figure out what it is that I don't know and then being able to conquer that.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to add to the employee thing real quick because it is, there's not a lot of upholstery shops that have employees. Most upholstery shops are just kind of, one person in a shop doing their own thing. Mm-hmm. And that was a very frightening kind of corner that we turned because, when you're bringing somebody else in, it's more than just, oh, I got an employee. It's someone that you have to make sure they're treated well. You have to make sure that they're paid well. You're now taking on a whole nother thing. So it's like, when I look at the fact that, we have, and I'm going to preemptively answer a question that you may be going to be asking, but it's a real sense of pride for me to be able to have a business that also supports 2 other families.
Yes.
And so it is, it's something that, I see as kind of a success on our side, but it's one of those things that was really scary. And so I think that was definitely a thing that was kind of a challenge was getting comfortable with the fact that we're going to be responsible for the lives of a couple other people,
Wes, I think it's like you said, you didn't ever think it wasn't going to business, but when you were learning all of this, you assumed it, but you weren't. When we're planning to grow our business, we don't realize it's going to encompass so much as it grows. And Jessica, as you said, we don't know what we don't know. So, all right, we'll hire somebody. And, 7 hours later, while you're looking through government pages and asking people, what am I even supposed to be doing here? And you can hire someone until you can do it correctly. But on the other hand, if you wait too long, then you're mired in too much work and you don't have the time to train the person properly. So that's a big challenge. But Wes, to your point, several people that I've interviewed have also had that sense of pride around being able to hire someone and give them a salary and that allows them to prosper.
Yeah, and we've gotten the question asked, well, aren't you afraid that you're going to hire somebody and they're going to go out and start their own shop? Mm-hmm. And my response to that is not at all. That would be, to me, another sign of success, because if I brought somebody into my shop and I trained them well enough to where they're able to go out and start their own shop, and let's say that they're better than me, that's awesome. Okay. I'm glad that I was able to do that for somebody. I cannot upholster every piece of furniture on this earth. I can only upholster so many pieces.
Right.
And we have a backlog because, there's, and I think most shops, if you have a good enough reputation, you probably have a little bit of a waiting list.
Right.
And so it's, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I can't do this forever. If someone sprouts off from us and opens up their shop, that's great. But I will say that during the process of searching for our employees, we kind of looked for people who were more interested in the craft and not necessarily running a business. We have the employees that we have right now. I don't think either one of them have any desire to go run their own business. Because they see how much work that we put into that. Having employees is a part-time job, all the things that she has to do. So, it's like, and so, yeah, it's not, It's not easy by any stretch of the imagination to just run the shop, let alone do the work and do everything else involved. I don't know how. I mean, we have done it together for 25 years. I don't know how anyone does it by themselves. You know, I mean, I see shops where people are genuinely doing it by themselves. I'm like, I have no concept how you could do that, because that's so much work.
Right. And I think the two of you are doing it well, Wes. And I know you're not throwing shade on anyone, but no one can do everything and be really successful.
No, you can't. And that is another aspect that we have. That's one of those things that besides being more gentle with yourself is, accepting the fact that you can't do everything else and embracing the fact that there are other people that are going to do it better than you. Let them do it. We have a very simple thing. We have a lady that comes in every other week to clean the kitchen and to clean the bathrooms. I was doing that, and I was doing it. And then like she would, Jess would say to me, "Hey, did you get over to the shop to clean it up?" And I was like, "I haven't been over there." "Oh, well, I just, and so it just came, you know what? Let's hire somebody, find out what it's going to cost. Let's just have somebody do it. It's amazing.
Right.
It's amazing. The cost is not really that much. And it's amazing that I come in, the kitchen's clean, the bathrooms are clean. Great. That's fantastic. And it's just one less thing off our plate.
Right.
We have accountants, we hire accountants to do different, different things, end of year taxes and all that other stuff. Why on earth would we want to do that to ourselves? So it's definitely, we have a company that comes and washes our windows. It's not that expensive. And it's, they come and they wash the windows. Things look great.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just those little tasks that you can find to delegate to somebody else. And it may cost you a little bit of money, but I bet you the stress that it takes off of you is way worth it.
Absolutely it is. One of the questions I do ask is about success, and I think you've sort of defined it. Part of it is the pride in having a business that supports other people. Jessica, how about you? What is your definition of success?
We used to always say that we knew we were successful when we could go take a nap whenever we wanted to.
I love that.
And it's kind of stuck with me. Even if it's not even, specifically a nap, but, if like Wednesday rolls around and we're like, you know what, we're going to go drive to the mountains for today.
Okay.
We know everything's going to be running fine. So I think it's really having the freedom to say, I'm going to do a little bit of this for me.
Okay.
Yeah, we had an employee that came in today, and she had some other things that she needed to handle that were, the things that, she was just trying to stress on how she was going to handle these things. And it was like, after lunch, just go home.
Right.
Just go take care of your stuff. I need my people to be ready to be here and to be focused and be here. And if something's going on, there's no upholstery emergencies.
Right. There's not.
There's no upholstery emergencies.
Right. Not in window treatments either.
Yeah. There's no emergencies. And so it's okay. Going and taking care of what you need to take care of for half a day isn't going to do anything to our schedule, that's going to, hurt anybody. And if it's going to make you mentally better, do it.
Okay.
We went to a 4-day work week last year, and it's amazing. Everybody loves it. We work really hard for 4 days, and then we take a 3-day weekend every weekend. And that gives everybody a chance to decompress and be ready to come back to work on Monday, and that's just the things that, that we tried to do. When you were talking about success, though, I wanted to just also revisit that and say that that's been an evolving concept.
Okay.
The first time that I felt, or my first successful goal, like my first marker was like, oh, when I get to this point, I will feel successful. And that was when I grew up in a small town in Maryland, and it had the little downtown area had all these buildings, with the storefront downstairs and the apartments upstairs and all that. And I just always loved that. And I loved the concept of that. And we had forever, we'd either have our shop in a garage or in a basement or something like that. And, and it was fine. But to be able to purchase a building that had the shop downstairs and the apartment above, that's what was always on my list of that's what I want. Okay. And she did it. She found a building, she bought it, and it's exactly that. It's a 1920s grocery store with the downstairs was the grocery and the upstairs was the apartment. And we put our shop downstairs, and we had our apartment upstairs, and it was fantastic. Okay. I loved it. We still live there now, but at that moment I was like, this is I have achieved what I wanted. This is my success.
Okay.
Well, when I got that, I had to put something else up for success. I'm like, well, I've got this. I'm not going to stop, And so my next step was, when I'm up here in the apartment having breakfast and I hear somebody open up the shop and work, then I will feel, then I was like, it's like my shop's opening up and work is going on and I'm up here having coffee and eating breakfast. I was like, then I'll feel successful.
Okay.
And then that happened.
Okay.
And so it was like, well, now what's next? So success is a constantly evolving thing. It shouldn't be like, once you reach this point, that's it, I'm turning it off.
Right.
It's like you've gotten to here. Okay, now what can I achieve next? What can I do next? And,
I love that.
so yeah, and it's just kind of, so success is this constantly evolving thing. And so now that we have this much larger space, it's 9/10 of a mile to our house from here. So you can bike it in 3 minutes, walk it in 10 minutes. It's very easy to get to, but we're separated now from our shop.
Okay.
Which is a completely different experience. And I enjoy that as well, because when I go home at night, I'm actually going home. Instead of going home at night and we're doing something and she's like, hey, I'm going to make some dinner and it'll be about an hour and a half. And I go, okay. So then I just go back downstairs and work some more.
Right.
And so it's really, we've kind of, and so now I see, and to me, that's success is like, I can work 4 days a week and go home and forget about it.
Right.
So, but of course, sometimes I end up coming back or, doing whatever, but, that's on my terms and not because I'm just bored,
Right. And I think that's one of the things about entrepreneurship, that people who are looking towards it as an ideal or thinking that they don't understand all that goes behind that. And I struggle with, I'm 65 years old. I have to think about what I'm going to do when I retire. And I keep thinking, oh, what am I going to do with myself? Partly because my workroom is in my home. My office is where I run the library, and I can just, jump in and do a few things. And, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Wes, except that my husband is the one who's cooking dinner most nights because he's a better cook. Dinner will be ready in a half an hour. I'm like, oh, good, I can send those emails out, or I can do just this little thing. I don't know if my business was not in my home. There are things I might have stepped away from a little more often than I did. But there are people who have no interest, but they want to go home and not be attached to the business. But as owners, there's always something that's going to be going on, and it's always going to be part of you. And like you've said, you've hired people who want to be upholsterers, not necessarily run a business.
Well, and that separation is definitely nice, but there's also times where we find ourselves, we might be finding, sitting on the back porch having a glass of wine and doing emails, right. But I mean, that's kind of on our own terms or whatever. And it's not, it's not, like I said, it's not out of like, just boredom and going downstairs and doing more work and you just end up, at midnight, I'm still down there working.
Right. Those are different terms. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, based on the idea that you said we all make mistakes and we're human, now you have people working for you and they can make mistakes.
They can.
How can you handle that? Because that's a whole different, now you're costing me money, and sometimes they don't listen to you in the first place.
Well, I will say that I don't want anybody to be disillusioned. As an upholstery shop, this may be different in other businesses, but as an upholstery shop and also having the desire to pay our employees well, they don't generate a huge amount of money for us. Because we're paying them and they cover themselves, but they don't generate a huge amount of money for us. But you're right, they do make mistakes and that can cost us money. And what do we do with that?
So sometimes we end up just like it would be if we ended up making a mistake, it ends up costing us money. Right. That's the ultimate thing that it ends up being. The way that we work, though, is we have kind of like an open community here. So we are helping each other on projects. We're very communicative about the projects, about our expectations on the projects. When I give one of our upholsterers, the work order for the next project, we are talking about it. We're trying to make sure that if there's questions, those questions are answered. And then, we work in one big space. So we are seeing what everybody's doing. So if something were to perhaps get put on the wrong direction, it can be caught fairly quickly.
Okay.
And a lot of times if something needs to get torn down or taken apart or recut or whatnot, Wes or I will step in order to help expedite that.
Okay.
So most, we're all human, things happen. I mean, it really isn't that big of a deal. Like, we mentioned there's no upholstery emergencies. Right. But yeah, so we try to preemptively have that not happen.
Right.
Ultimately. But yeah, we're not, yeah, nobody's getting written up, or, it's not like that. So, we try to be understanding when things happen, and, try to make sure that we know what direction everything's running in. And, just any little thing can happen. So, but, a lot of times I sew a lot. And when you're sewing, you get just as good ripping out stitches as you get putting in the stitches.
Yes, you do.
So, it's part of it.
Okay. Okay. So I'm curious. You talked a little bit about learning the industry as well as the business. Have either of you read any books or taken any classes or anything in that area that's really significantly impacted your business?
That's our library.
Oh, yeah, right there.
We do have books. We do have books here. There's not anything that particularly stands out as far as like anything that I've read or any particular book, because I've got a little stack of books there, and we've gone over. I think that the most value and the most value and most like change that I've ever gotten from anything is really probably when we get together as a group of upholsterers and just sit down and talk.
Okay.
I was just going to say that.
Sorry. We share a lot of the same opinions and thoughts. But
I think, going to Kim's Upholstery does, the upholstery meetups, and going there and just talking with people who are dealing with the same exact things. There's not many upholsterers around, so it's not like, we all get together at the local coffee shop at once a week, so kind of, hearing what other people are working with and struggling with, and really just kind of having that, that community, I think is really important.
Okay. Do you use much technology in your business?
A lot more than we used to.
Okay.
Yeah. We had the paper invoices, and I had a paper, accounting book.
We had a paper desk calendar and like all that stuff. And COVID, I think, is the thing that kicked us over into we use Wave and a few other different, and all that stuff now. And now it's become very convenient, because we can send invoices to these clients, digitally. And the client can get on there and pay for it or do whatever. And we have found that sometimes, like, we'll be sitting there working and we get this email and they're like, "Oh, you got paid $100." And we're like, and some client will just start like paying once a month on this thing that, because when we were so far booked out, we'd pick up a sofa and the client had already paid for it because they were making little payments on it, like layaway or something, for 8 months or something. And then it's all paid for. And they were like, "Oh, that's great." And so by the time it's all, which, for me, I never really felt very comfortable with, because I hate getting paid before a job is done.
Okay.
But because I have a wonderful bookkeeping office person, that money was never available. It was off somewhere else in some sort of other fantasy account somewhere, and I couldn't see it, and so it was fine. And so when we dropped the piece off, we would get paid because she would just transfer the money into the other account. So
Got it.
It's definitely something that I always had a hard time dealing with at first, but has actually become pretty nice. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that we use it for, is just invoicing and keeping track of, all of our stuff, emails.
And all of our scheduling too. So I, use a Google Calendar for all of our scheduling, and, everything communicates with everything. We use Google Drive. We put before photos, so anybody who's working on anything, if they have a question of how something looked before, they can hop on the drive and be able to kind of utilize that.
If something comes in, we try to get some good 360 pictures of it, put it up on the drive under the invoice or whatever, and then if anybody needs it, they can get on there and look at it. But one of the things that I like to try to remind some of the people that are a little bit newer to this is that when we first started, the only way to advertise was through the newspaper or the phone book.
Yes, I remember that.
It was, and even for just a small line, it was pretty much like a mortgage payment.
Yep.
For what we paid for like a phone book and newspaper, we could have paid for a house. And so, it was very expensive, and there was not a lot of, interaction with your clients, as opposed to nowadays with the internet. I look at the time that I spend making videos or posting stuff up. Even if if I paid myself hourly, I wouldn't be spending as much as I was spending on, the phone book and all that stuff. So those forms of technology have definitely been successful. I mean, we get people that get a hold of us, from, other states, and they go, "Oh, we've been following you on Instagram and we want you to do this piece for us." And I'm thinking, there's people that upholster in Chicago or like, North Carolina or Florida. We have clients from Florida, and things like that. And I'm like, but they're like, oh no, we're going to be driving through there. We're just going to, send you pictures, pick some fabric drops. It's like, okay. And so, I would have never gotten those clients had we just been advertising in the phone book and through the newspaper. So, I mean, the technology has definitely, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but at the same time, it's made it to where it's so much easier for people to get their product or their information or their face out. And then you get a lot better reaction with the clients. We get clients who kind of already feel like they know us a little bit, before they come in. So that's kind of nice too. So it's the technology has definitely shifted and in a mostly positive way, I think, for the shop. So
I think so.
Okay. And it's interesting to me how some people have easily embraced it. I think you have. And I asked you that question knowing full well that you do videos on Instagram. So clearly technology is part of your business. So what 3 business items could you not live without?
I think at this point, my laptop.
Right.
Yeah, because we meet with a client and I'm using my laptop for everything. I'm looking up availability of fabrics. I'm looking up, writing up invoices. So I think at this point that would be hard to give up.
Okay.
Does she count as a business? I could not do any of it without her. I would say like a piece of technology that I can't live without. I've said this before. I would not be disappointed if we got a random solar flare and it knocked everything out and we didn't have internet or anything else anymore. So, I could live without that. That's not a big deal. Piece of technology I couldn't live without. Trying to think of like technology that I use on a daily basis. I know that's my phone, but that's what I'm saying. I guess, yeah. Of course, without the phone, it'd be difficult to get business and stuff like that. But yeah, other than like the computer stuff, I don't know what.
You don't use a lot of technology.
No, and I think that's one of the interesting things about what we all do for a living is we basically are using our hands for our work.
Oh, yeah.
We have sewing machines and there's some electrical machines involved, but most of what we do, we could do with our hands. And now we use a lot of technology to run our businesses.
Sure.
So I tend to ask this question, and I'm really curious if I get different answers from both of you. Jessica, since you're the one who's been doing the sewing, do you ever do any sewing just for pleasure?
Occasionally, yeah. I have.
She just made herself some pillows last weekend.
I did make some. Yeah, I did. But yeah, so we have. I think as far as sewing machines, up in the double digits between the house and here.
Home machines and commercial machines.
We counted a while ago, and I don't remember how many sewing machines we have, but yeah,
not all of them work.
I have a sewing machine at home, that I use. It's like a kind of a light industrial.
All right.
It's a
Stinger 500.
501 at one of the slant needles. I love it. It's a Rocketeer. It just is really cool. And it does really, really neat things. It's, I'm always impressed by the things it can sew through.
For a machine from the 60s.
Yeah. But, I'll do mending at the house, things like that. And then here, was it last weekend?
Yeah,
I made some pillows. We had some leftover fabric that I was just head over heels with, and I just had to make some pillows. So yeah, ended up making some throw pillows for the house. So yeah, but besides that, we'll make like bags every once in a while.
Yeah. Whenever I like to, when we gift things, I like to make bags, so I'll just take some scraps and make a bag. There's a group here in town. I just made a bunch of bags for, cause they needed some stuff. So yeah, I like doing that.
You made pants.
I've made pants. Yeah. So I've made some clothing. Actually, yeah. So that was kind of a cool thing that I did for myself. I've done a lot of like clothing repair and things like that. I have a great satisfaction in, mending my own clothes. Actually, I had a pair of shorts that Jessica, I think, threw away because they were more patched than they were shorts. But it was one of those things where it's just like, there's definitely some satisfaction. And I've made a few gifts and things like that. So that's kind of cool stuff to be able to kind of just, sit back and be like, think about something. Go, I'm going to do that for this person and just make them something. So
I love that because a lot of us have made our ability to make things our business, and then we don't have the time to actually make things that are not part of our business.
Well, and that comes in with getting some control over your time, like with us making our 4-day work week and really just kind of having boundaries on things. because for a long time we really didn't have these boundaries set up for our time. We had boundaries set up for our clients, but we didn't really have any set up for ourselves. And so we kind of developed those. That's really allowed us to have this time to do other things.
Okay. What is your favorite thing to be making in the workroom, Wes?
My favorite thing to be making. I really like commercial work.
Okay.
It's not really specific, but I like commercial work because usually we're getting it in quantity.
Okay.
And so I'm able to kind of compete with myself as far as like getting stuff done and, just like getting a really good pattern down and just like really banging a job out and just like, you're done. And it's like, I'm like, oh, I got that one done, a minute faster than the last one, so I just compete with myself. And so, I kind of, even that's not really a specific, like what I like to do. I think as far as like skills of particularly upholstery, I really enjoy tufting.
Okay.
I really enjoy it because it's so chaotic during the process, but then as everything just kind of starts to finalize, it really just comes and you're like, whoa, that really came together nice. And so I think tufting is kind of like if I was to pick like a particular skill, I love doing that. It's a lot of fun because, like I said, it's just this organized chaos.
Okay. How about you, Jessica? What is your favorite thing to make?
I love cushions.
Okay.
I love, a nice boxed cushion. I love a tea cushion. I love the really challenging cushions with like the inverted corners. I love a challenging cushion. And then, you turn it right side out and it gets stuffed and you're like, all the corners are beautiful. And it's just, mwah, I love it. Yeah, I love a cushion.
I love that. I love when they're done. I don't love the process of it. So I'm going to ask you to tell me this about the other person. Jessica, what does Wes do extremely well?
He does so many things extremely well that it's really going to be hard for me.
Wow.
I say that with no irony. He is so mechanically minded that it shocks me when he takes something apart and is able to put it back together beautifully.
Okay.
That I think that is just, it's one of many superpowers that he has.
Okay. I was going to ask what you don't do so well, but since we're riding on a high, Wes?
No, I would love to know what I don't do well.
Oh, I can tell you. And
Tell me
Okay,
first.
I'll tell you. Okay, sure. She has an amazing ability to. She got a lot of good stuff as well, but she has an amazing ability to just deal with clients.
Okay.
It could be a very difficult client. It could be somebody that like I would have just hung up on with a long time ago. I'm like, I don't even need it. Just go away. And she gets in there and she just figures out where it needs to go. And she could just like land this chaos and craziness. And then the job's done. And I'm just like, I don't know how we did that. But she and her ability to go into somebody's house and we'll have somebody that's just like, nope, it's going to be yellow. I'm going to have a yellow couch. This is what I want. And she goes in and she talks to them. And then the next thing you know, they end up with a floral couch.
Okay.
Because she knows what they want more than what they know what they want. And so, yeah, she'll walk into somebody's house and immediately she's looking at colors. She's looking at art. She's looking for animals. She's looking, for signs of children, all kinds of stuff. She's picking up on all those signals. And when we sit down, she's like, this and that. She's like, oh, go get me that book and I'll go get them. And she's, so she's really good at just like, getting a client condensed into really where they need to be and that kind of aspect. So.
Oh, that is a great skill, and it is not one that I possess, so I'm in awe of that, Jess. Okay, Jess, what is Wes not so good at?
Oh, there's so many things. I'm kidding. He struggles with time management.
I knew that was your answer.
He is always very gung-ho that he can do absolutely everything right now. And I think he forgets that there's only 24 hours in a day.
There's a clock. And it's always ticking by.
Yeah, so it's always time management. So I got to be on him all the time.
Okay. Wes, what is Jessica not so great at?
What is she not that great at? There's something. She is not good at giving herself grace and patience.
Well, that's true.
Okay.
She is very hard on herself sometimes. when she should be being much easier on herself. And so I will say that she is harder on herself than she should be.
Smart answer, Wes.
Well, I mean, we've been together for 30 years, so.
You learn a lot in those 30 years, right?
A couple of things, yeah.
All right, I'll ask you each this to tell me about yourself. Jessica, what about you would surprise people?
I think that it would surprise people to know that I have a lot of tattoos and I love punk rock music.
Okay, that's great. Wes, what about you?
I'm going to say that it would probably, because I'm such a high energy person a lot of the times, I think people would be surprised to find out that I'm narcoleptic.
Seriously?
Yeah. But it's not like I'll be sitting here talking and just like fall asleep. You know,
okay,
it's not that. You know, it's just I'll be working, and that's kind of when she was talking about success and being able to take a nap whenever we want.
Okay.
When it was just the two of us here, you know, I would just, you know, I'd feel myself getting tired. I'd feel myself like hitting this wall, and it wasn't like I could drink a cup of coffee and get through it. It was literally like this physical, my body is now shutting down. Okay. And so I just lay a piece of foam down on the ground, take a nap. And then one of our employees that we hired, you know, Jessica would give him the spiel. Here's the shop. Here's this. Here's that. Oh, and by the way, if you see Wes sleeping, don't change anything. Don't be quiet. He's going to sleep for a few minutes. He'll wake up and be fine. Just step over him. Don't turn the music down. Don't anything. And after a little while, she said, you know, that's not normal. And I said, oh, yeah, it's normal. I've done it all the time. And she goes, no, that's not like a thing people do. People don't lay down for 5 minutes and take a nap and like wake up and then they're fine again. And then she's like, that's not normal. And so I went and talked to my doctor and we went through the whole process. And yeah, it's narcolepsy. Okay. And, you know, and so it's one of those things that I've dealt with my whole life and never knew it was like a thing.
Okay.
And, you know, I'd be driving on a road trip, and as soon as I get tired, I just pull over and, you know, take a nap for like 5 minutes. And I feel like I slept all night long. And then I just keep going down the road. And yeah, the doctor's like, no, that's not normal. People don't do that.
Okay.
And so yeah, I mean, I'll take a nap. You know, we got a little spot. She has an office that we call her loftus. It's raised up because we have higher ceilings here, and we keep some Dacron and stuff stored underneath of it. And whenever I get sleepy during the day, I just let her know, hey, I'm going to take a nap real quick, and I go out in there, and literally it's 5 or 10 minutes, and I take a nap, and I feel completely refreshed and ready to go. But
so you know when it's coming on.
Oh yeah, I can feel it. Yeah, I can feel it coming, and I feel myself like I said, hitting that wall and getting real sleepy. And then I just now that it's kind of like just this known thing everybody knows about, it's not a big deal. If you see me sleeping, it's okay. So yeah, that's the thing. I think you would be surprised because, like I said, most of the time I'm pretty high energy, ready to go. I'm both a morning person and a night person. So
yeah, I don't think anyone has ever given me that answer for sure.
See, I surprised you.
Yes, and that is the point of the question. I love that. So I'm curious. I ask people what traits they think an entrepreneur has to have, and I'd love to ask the two of you, what traits do you think a couple has to have, or partners, or anyone who's going to be in business with someone that they love?
I think that you have to have excellent communication skills. And if you don't know that you have excellent communication skills, you need to go find somebody to teach you how to have excellent communication skills.
Okay.
Yeah, I would second that. I would say listening. People talk all the time. I mean, we've been talking our whole life, and we think that we know how to talk, and we think we know how to listen.
Right. We think we know.
I encourage, regardless, like she said, regardless of how good you think at either one of those skills are, go find somebody that is a professional person for training, listening, and talking, therapist, whatever. You sit down with them and find out if you're as good as you are. Have somebody evaluate you, because that's been key. That's been key for our success, I think, in marriage and in business. And it hasn't always been that way. But when you go, it's just like any other skill, it's just like any other tool or any other thing you're going to have around the shop. I couldn't be as successful with my business if I didn't have the collection of tools that I have. Well, I wouldn't be as successful in our relationship if I don't have a set of tools as well to deal with everything that's coming along every day, because there's a huge amount of stress that a business puts on a relationship. There's a huge amount of stress that just life in general puts out there. Right. And so without having really good communication, listening, understanding, patience, all of those things are part of the communication process. Most people think that they're really good at that. And I think that they'd be surprising themselves when they find out how many skills they could probably improve.
Right. And it's so interesting that you say that, Wes, because when I started the podcast, I thought I was a pretty good listener. And I realized that I had a lot to learn about listening, because I'd either be worried about what I had to do technically for the podcast or thinking about what the next question was going to be. And I'd be like, they're talking right now, Seal, and you need to be listening to what they're saying or you won't have another question for them. So I love that. And Jessica, I think to your point, if you're going to be spending so much time together as a couple who's running a business and as partners who are going to be running a business, you need to be able to communicate with each other. You need to be able to communicate well, or it won't work, and neither will the marriage if you happen to be a married couple. So thank you for that. I think that's good advice. All right, I'm curious, where do you guys see yourselves in 5 years?
5 years sounds like it's a long time, but I know that it's just around the corner. 5 years from now, I would probably like to have somebody in here taking over a little bit of the office work so that it would be a little bit easier for us to, step away, take a week, a month off, something like that. So I think that that's where I'd like to be a little bit able to take more time off.
Okay. And Wes, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of there with that as well. Because in 5 years we'll have been in this for 31 years, and it's Grandpa worked until into his 80s. He was still behind us. He was still trying to sew at like 92 and couldn't see or do anything. It was just like he was just kept going. And as much as I can admire that, I also don't want that to be me.
Got it.
I want to, so I would hope in 5 years we'd be a little bit closer to, more time away, being able to get set back a little bit more.
Okay.
Just maybe a bigger building. Mm-hmm. I don't know. She works magic. I don't know how she does it, but she does it.
Well, I could easily talk to the two of you for another hour, but I want to value your time. I will put links to your Facebook and Instagram accounts. I highly recommend people follow you because your Tip Tuesdays are educational as well as extremely entertaining. You do a great job with this.
Thank you.
I would love to know what advice you would have, in particular for a couple thinking about going into a business like Upholstery. What would you tell them and what would you want them to know before they got started?
Where they got started. I would say you only live once. Do what you want to do.
I like that.
Yeah. I think if our industry is so small that I think that if you are interested in it and you think that you would enjoy having a business in upholstery, mm-hmm. I say that's enough right there, to say, figure out what you need to, do and what you need to get and figure out what you don't know that you don't know right. Again. And yeah, just go for it.
I love that. Wes, anything to add to that?
Yes, I would say, especially if it's this particular craft that you're wanting to get into. Actually, I think it probably works well, translates to any craft. Try to find a shop that will allow you to spend some time there. Mm-hmm. When I first moved to Knoxville, I was working for a shop. It's the gentleman died and the shop closed. Surprise. I used to work at this shop. It was an old shop, well established here in town. I learned a lot from that shop, and I learned more about what not to do. Right. Than I was learning about what to do. And that's just as valuable. Okay. So I would suggest someone to try. Fortunately, we're at a point right now where we have shops that are more open to things like this. I would suggest just getting involved in the community of whatever craft it's going to be. Get involved in that as deeply as you can. Get some good connections. Get some people that'll let you come into their shop and just kind of experience it. Even if you're just going in, to observe and help them out, whatever, doing it for free. It's a good idea to get some other experiences, because I think in this craft, because it's a lot of people that are just one person in their shop by themselves, they don't get exposed to a lot of other things. And so I think just going and seeing someone else's shop layout or just how they do things, all these other things, you're going to go, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Or, how you can make yourself more efficient, or a process or a tool or just anything, I think that is, I wished I would have had that earlier in my career, being able to do that. And that's why that's why I do what I do now, especially like the Tip Tuesday things, is because I saw a lot of people out there teaching, a lot of people doing a lot of different stuff. And I just tried to find, what could I do to kind of help proliferate some of this information in my own way, not step on anybody's toes, and also not be real serious about it or anything like that as well. So that's kind of where I find my little niche to do that, and just find that, and like I said earlier, I let our customers guide us. When I first started, I wasn't sure where we were going to go. I knew we weren't going to be able to do everything, but I knew we were going to get, knew we were going to go. So I would say, just find somebody to mentor, I guess, is what the short answer would be of that long statement.
But you included so many other tidbits, so I think that was important. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, both of you. I really appreciate you took the time to talk with me today.
Oh, no problem. I love talking.
I hope you enjoyed hearing from Wes and Jess today. One of the things that you couldn't see was how often they looked at each other and checked in with each other while they were talking. Many times Wes reached over and put his arm or his hand on Jess's back. They really have a great relationship, and their communication is terrific, and it was really wonderful to see how they've grown their business, how important it is to them to have their employees feel comfortable that work for them. It was really a pleasure to talk with them today, and I hope that you enjoyed hearing from them. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.